Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Today, we're going to be showing you how to make a French dip with Au Jus, so let's get started. For the ingredients, we're going to be using our cut of meat, which is roast beef. This one weighs a little bit over 2 pounds. We're going to need an onion for the Au Jus, which we'll get to later. Then, we're going to be using some salt, some garlic powder, some black pepper, and then lastly, some bouillon for the Au Jus itself. We're going to be using 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, and then 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. After you combine all of these into a container, just go ahead and give them a mix because this is going to be the dry rub that we are using for the roast. Afterwards, take some cooking oil and apply it to a baking sheet. We are then going to take the roast itself and coat it in the oil that you put on the baking sheet. Make sure to coat as many sides of the roast as you can, that way it's going to reduce the chance of it burning in the oven. After completing this step, take the dry rub that you made and apply it evenly to all sides of the roast. Make sure to get as many parts of the roast as possible, so that way all of the roast is coated in that flavor. The last thing we're going to be doing before we put the roast in the oven is applying some butcher's twine. Depending on the size of your roast will affect how many pieces of twine you need to apply, but usually 3 will do the trick. Now, when you're applying the twine, you want to make sure it's on there firmly, but not so much to where it's actually cutting into the roast itself. The cook time for this roast was around 1 hour at 350 degrees. Generally, you want to cook it for 20 minutes per pound for the roast, so that's why we just chose around an hour for this one. After it's out of the oven and had some time to set, put it into a pot with the drippings from the roast. We are going to leave it to set to the side so that way it can get more firm while we were preparing the Au Jus. To start with the prep for the Au Jus, go ahead and take an onion and dice it up as finely as you would like. In a pan, apply some oil and then throw the onions in. We're going to be cooking the onions until they get a little bit of a caramelization or until they're translucent. Here, we're applying some salt and pepper to the onions just to give them a little bit of extra flavor. This step isn't necessary, but if you want your onions to have a little bit more flavor, feel free to add whatever seasonings you would like, but again, this step is not necessary. Once the onions are translucent and caramelized, add 1 tablespoon of flour to the onions and give it a mix. This will act as a thickening agent for the Au Jus itself. Take some extra pieces of the roast and some of the drippings and throw it in with the onions. To make the Au Jus itself, combine 2 tablespoons of the bouillon or beef paste with 2 cups of water. Bring it to a rolling boil and then let it simmer for about 10 minutes so that way it can concentrate and thicken. Afterwards, the Au Jus itself is done. Now for the last step before assembling the sandwich is cutting up the roast beef. You can put this on whatever bread you would like or whatever cheese that you would like, whatever your personal preference is. You can also serve this with any size of your choosing, whether it's just with potatoes, french fries, anything of your liking. The sandwich itself is good enough on its own, but if you want a more filling meal, feel free to serve it with sides. This is a really quick, simple recipe that you don't have to worry about being overly complicated. The longest part itself is just cooking the roast. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.